Welcome to the Blues Podcast. I am Mike Zito. I know it's hard to believe. That's what I look like. And apparently, Quarantine Curls is my new nickname here. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're staying sane. I've got a great episode interview coming up here. I think it's going to be wonderful. I'm really excited to talk to I'm proud to say my dear friend, Billy Price. Billy Price has been in my life for a long time, because at the age of 18 and my first job working at Tower Grove Music in St. Louis, Missouri. Hello to Ed and Nathan and all my friends back home in St. Louis. I cut my teeth at Tower Grove Music. That was in my neighborhood. The first week I was there, I heard a recording. It was called Roy Buchanan Livestock. And we had a 5-disc CD player in the store, and that was one of the CDs that they that one of the guys that worked there was in the player. His name was Bob Spitzfaden. He's no longer with us. God bless him. And I heard that record. It was the first time I heard that kind of guitar playing, because up until then I had heard Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan, Johnny Winter, Eddie Van Halen. I was a big Eddie Van Halen fan, still am. Anyway, this is about Billy Price. I'm getting to that. But it was a very, very big turning point for me. I heard this different type of guitar playing, crazy guitar playing on a Telecaster. It was Roy Buchanan. And we listened to that record over and over and over and over. And I remember really getting turned on to wanting to own a Telecaster. And I also remember thinking, because I was a singer, I was like, I knew that was not Roy Buchanan singing. I knew when he did sing, because he sang a couple songs. And there was this other singer on there. And I remember thinking after a while, like, wow, that guy's really good, because he really holds his own with all of that guitar playing. Like he was still the focal point on the songs. And that was Billy Price at a very young age, like in his early 20s. And so I just heard that record 1,000 times or more. And I know every word that Billy sings on there. So years later, to get to befriend Billy, to get to know him, to get to play music with him, to get to actually sit down and talk with him, has been wonderful. And Billy has an amazing story that's so much deeper than just Roy Buchanan, but still he has all the respect in the world for, he played at Carnegie Hall when he was 24 years old with Roy Buchanan. It's an amazing story. And I'm proud that Billy is also on our record label on Gulf Coast Records. And so it's going to be a great conversation. He is nominated this year for 2 Blues Music Awards for Soul Blues Male Artist of the Year and Soul Blues Album of the Year for Dog Eat Dog. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Price. Okay, there we go. So welcome to the Blues Podcast. And I have got my dear friend and just world famous soul singer, blues singer, Mr. Billy Price. How you doing, Billy?
Doing great, Mike. Thank you. Doing as well as I can under the circumstances, right?
Yeah, of course. Where are you at right now? Where's home at?
I live in Baltimore. I lived in Pittsburgh for most of my life, and then I moved to Baltimore a little over 2 years ago.
And you were just telling me it's of course it's bad everywhere. You're at home, but it's luckily in Baltimore things are not. It's still kind of been contained a little bit.
Well, yeah, it hasn't. It's not really raging here the way it is in some other places, but there is a stay-at-home order for people. So
are they not letting people like from New York, or you can't drive to?
No, I can't. No, I'm not.
And they can't get into where you're at either.
I guess that's right. Although I'm not sure how much they're enforcing that, but that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah. But the city is. It has a lot of people in the city, and I'm worried about what it might be like.
Yeah, you got to think that every big city's got it coming. Unfortunately, it's people, the math. I mean, how do you?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It takes one little thing. But we were also talking before you were home. You were just out. You were out.
Yeah, I was in Florida haven't done a trip down there in a long time, and I brought my whole band down to Florida. We did a few dates down there, and the places were packed and a lot of people, and I was trying to shake hands with my elbow the way you do, and people were looking at me, and didn't know what I was doing, but the awareness of the thing just really started to come on me while I was down there, and it wasn't until like 1 week later that I realized it was kind of dangerous to be on all those crowded clubs and
Sure.
on a crowded plane or bus, and
we knew, but we didn't know what we know now, and I felt the same way. We were on a cruise ship in February.
Oh, were you? Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
And then we went to Europe, and sometime in the first week of Europe, it started to kind of hit me like, we need to go home, not just out of fear, but also like, this isn't responsible.
Yeah, that's right.
That if people keep showing up, like, what's going to happen if you realize that, not just that I would get sick or somebody in the band would get sick, but what if somebody at the club came and they were sick and it made a bunch of people sick? And we were there.
Right. It's those crowded group things that are the most dangerous for this thing. I mean, did you hear about that choir out in Washington where they were at a choir rehearsal and I think 40 or 50 of them got sick?
Yeah.
Just from, being in the same room together and maybe singing, singing maybe conveys airborne particles. Who knows?
Well, we know now, and we're staying put, which is why I get to talk to you.
That's right.
I get to stay in contact with you fairly regular, but we don't get to sit down and do this. So we're going to make the most of it. I'm really excited that you would do this with me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. Really is.
I'm a big fan of the music and the history and the stories, and I'm a big fan of yours.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of yours too. So.
Well, that seems put on, but thank you.
No, it's not at all. I appreciate it. On that Roy Buchanan tribute we did, man.
That was really fun.
Yeah, that was
you mentioned it, and I'm gonna start here. I mean, I knew you before I knew who you were. Before I knew you.
Yeah.
Because at a young age, just still a teenager, I got hip to a Livestock album, which I'm sure, you've been talking about your entire life.
Yeah, yeah.
Although you've done a lot of other wonderful things, that was a big record, and we'll get to it. But I heard that record when I was in my teenage years, and I listened to it over and over and over. And of course, I got hip to it through the guitar playing of Roy Buchanan. But you're the other lead on the album, and there is vocals, and it was very obvious to me. Okay, that's not Roy Buchanan singing. I knew when it was him, and I knew when it wasn't him.
I was 22 or 23 years old.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, been a fan a long time. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, where?
No, I grew up in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, near New York. I moved to Pittsburgh in around 71.
Okay. But where at in New Jersey?
A place called Fair Lawn, about 20 minutes from New York City.
Okay. Fair Lawn, New Jersey.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And did you grow up in a household that was musical? Was there singing? Were there?
Not at all, really. I think my father might have played a little violin or something in a little combo, but no, not really musical. But the thing back then was the radio was such an important influence on me. I mean, the radio stations were just great in that area back then. It was the heyday of soul music, and there was a radio station in Newark, New Jersey called WNJR, and another one in New York, WWRL. And I mean, the music was so great. Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin, Ovi Wright, Bobby Blue Bland, Lowell Folsom, just one after the other. I used to borrow my parents' car on the weekends, and I would get done doing with whatever I was doing, and I would just drive around in circles around town just because I wanted to keep listening to the radio.
Yeah,
it was that great. Every song was great, And I really became a nut for soul music back
But maybe even when you were younger, like, what did your parents, did they listen to music in the house? Did they play records? Did they?
then. Not much. I did, but they didn't. My older
Okay.
brother was kind of indifferent to it, or he kind of liked it. But my older brother had some friends who were big music fans, and
Okay.
I used to hang out with them. They used to take me with them. There were these shows 4 times a year in New York City. There was a disc jockey named Murray the K, and he used to have these holiday shows at the Brooklyn Fox Theater in Brooklyn, and it would be like one house band and about 15 different acts. So
Yeah.
I saw the Impressions and Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells and Chuck Jackson and Maxine Brown and all these great performers, all backed up by the same band. They would come out and do 2 or 3 songs and then bring the next one on, and they were great. So I got to see a lot of shows when I was a kid too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when do you think, what's the age that you hear the radio and you hear this? I mean, is the radio, like you mentioned, the car, is there a radio in the house?
Yeah, radio in the house. 8, 9, 10 years old, I started listening to Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino, and I always gravitated toward rhythm and blues and soul. More so than rock and roll.
So maybe you listen to rock and roll first because that was what was on, but then you started to hear some new stuff.
Well, not really.
No?
I mean, I would say the first stuff I was aware of was Little Richard and Fats Domino and Chuck Berry, and of course Elvis also. But even in the when the British invasion started, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. I kind of liked the Rolling Stones. I was lukewarm about the Beatles because I was listening to Otis Redding, and that's what I really cared about.
Now, okay, so now let's do this. So when did you ever realize you like to sing? Was it something when you were very young, little, you were just walking around singing stuff, or?
Very, very young, because I used to play 45s in my room, and I used to lip sync to them and then try to sing to them. I remember particularly there was an album I had by Jackie Wilson called My Golden Favorites, and I used to come home from school and close the door and sing "To Be Loved" by Jackie Wilson and "Reet Petite" and all those great songs, and just kind of make believe I was a singer. And
did you sing at all? Did you do talent shows or?
Yeah, I used to do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Did they put you in choir or any of those kind of things?
I never nothing organized. It was always more like on the garage band level.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a band.
Your parents weren't like, "Hey, come on, you're singing," trying to bring you around or nothing.
Not really. I think they kind of hoped I would outgrow it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that would be my next question. So if you're doing this on your own, and when do they go, "Hey, this looks like this is more than just a hobby or for fun"? Do they start taking an interest, or do they start being concerned?
They started taking an interest after I had graduated college, and then I got with Roy Buchanan, and I played at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
Buchanan, and once I okay, now I've been to Carnegie Hall, and they were in the audience.
Yeah.
And
that would make anybody's parents interested.
People were passing joints to them in the row, you're.
So, but as a little kid, though, they weren't taking you around or.
No, they weren't pushing it. I mean, they paid for guitar lessons. I played a little guitar and tried to learn how to play guitar. Never got really good at it.
But the singers were that was immediately.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I had a band I think my first band, I was in the 6th or 7th grade. And but again, we were doing pretty cool material, for that time.
Yeah. And
I was doing B.B. King songs when I was in 7th, 8th grade, doing "Don't Answer the Door" by B.B. King.
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's pretty great. Is this the 60s, early?
Yeah, 60s, right, mid to late 60s. I graduated high school in '67.
Okay.
Which was the absolute heyday of Southern soul music. I mean, it was
Yeah.
The greatest period. That was when Stax
And
Holt was.
you kind of give credit to that to the radio stations in northern Jersey or out of New York that you were getting here.
Yeah.
Because maybe you wouldn't even have, I mean, you wouldn't normally probably get to hear this music.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it was definitely the radio, and I I collected records. Whatever money I had, I would spend on 45s and albums.
And so, what was it about, say, hearing a Bobby Blue Band song or a Chuck Berry song that made you think like, okay, yeah, I like that. Like you like both, but I like that. You know.
Yeah, it's mysterious. I don't know. Maybe it was the emotion or something. But I was just instinctively tuned into it. I can't really explain it. I'm not sure what it is. Well, why did I become more interested in that kind of stuff than in the stuff most of my friends were listening to? I don't know. Doo-wop was really big in Jersey also, the vocal groups. And I really dug that stuff, like the Flamingos and the Moonglows and the Dubs and all those vocal groups. Very big in Jersey.
Okay, so I'm not I don't mean this in any way disrespectful or anything at all. Do you think that being of the age where you were able to, listen to music in the late 50s, the early 60s, the mid 60s, maybe vocals were even a little bit more, I don't want to say appreciated, because still today great singers are appreciated, but it was definitely singers and songs were the main component.
No question. Yeah,
pop music.
I think so. Yeah, for a long time in my career, I didn't really care much about or concentrate on writing songs, because I thought of myself as a singer.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, I mean, Bobby Bland never wrote his own songs. A lot of these guys, Sam Cooke did, but many of them didn't. Tyrone Davis never wrote his own songs.
And say, like with a Sinatra, who didn't write his songs, if you were a great singer,
that's right,
you could take any song and make it good.
Exactly
it
right.
was not a very good song.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So really, ultimately,
you hear Wilson Pickett sing "Sugar Sugar" by the Archies?
No,
right?
No. It's great. Yeah.
You ever hear Bobby Womack sing "Sweet Caroline"? It's amazing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you had it in you, and that's what I think is really interesting. I want to make sure we kind of stay with that. Is, you wanted to be a singer.
I wanted to be a singer and a band leader, which I found out fairly early that I was pretty good at that. I was pretty good at like getting a group of guys together and focusing them on a vision and doing something like that.
Like, let's do these songs, this music.
Yeah.
And it will in finding musicians, how like guys that would accompany you and kind of make you look good rather than.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I've had a lot of really good bands over the years.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into that. So what's you said 6th, 7th grade, what's the first time you've really got a band and you're starting to do something?
I had a band in high school called Billy and the Uptights. That was the first one.
All right.
Yeah, and somewhere on my Facebook page, there's a list. One of the guys who was in Billy and the Uptights, who, by the way, I saw at the Funky Biscuit in Florida first week in March. But he had posted on Facebook. He had a typed up list of our repertoire, and man, the repertoire was really hip. It really was. Little Latin Loopy Loo by Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, and a bunch of Wilson Pickett stuff. Midnight Hour and Mustang.
And where did that band play? So what'd you do? Like dances, parties?
Yeah, it would be like CYOs, Christian youth organizations, dances, and battles of the band, and Jewish centers and that kind of thing.
And are you getting known then?
Yeah, Billy and the Uptights used to play.
Billy sings good.
Yeah. Billy and the Uptights used to play at this place called the Fairlawn Canteen. It was some place that they had for youth to go and presumably not get in trouble and not drink. So it was where everybody went on the weekends, and we were the big band. at least when I was in high school. That was
Yeah.
serious.
And being a singer in high school, that's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of young ladies hanging around. The girls love the singers.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah, at least I hope so.
You didn't have any problems getting a date in high school then?
I didn't do too badly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, what's the line then from that to, I mean, you're talking about high school, and at 20, 21, 22, you're at Carnegie Hall. So this is a short window. So
I went to college at Penn State in central Pennsylvania, and I had some pretty good bands there as well. I had a horn band called the Respectables, and it wasn't intended to be ironic. That was what we called ourselves, But there was a band in Harrisburg back then called the Magnificent Men, and they were a blue-eyed soul band. Really, really great. They were on Capitol Records, and the Respectables kind of patterned themselves after the Magnificent Men in a way. Okay. And we played all the fraternity parties. We were always busy and did really well. And then I had a rock band after that called, what the hell was that band called? I'm blanking on it, but we would do a lot of R&B, but also stuff like the band and Neil Young and Steve Miller Band and that kind of stuff.
So you still like some of the rock and roll stuff?
Yeah, I did.
Maybe the singers are not the classic kind of really singing vocal, singers. And is that maybe the reason why, like, say you like the Rolling Stones, but I mean, Mick Jagger's, he'll tell you he's not a Bobby Blue Bland to say.
He himself, I mean, he liked the same stuff that I liked,
Yeah.
And so, right.
Like, was it guitars? I've got a reason I'm asking these questions. Mm-hmm. We're leading to the obvious, but like, were the guitars just, I mean, you're talking about a time, you said you graduated in 67 and now you're going to Penn State. Guitars getting ready to be king.
In some of the rock bands, yes, because that was the era of Clapton and Hendrix. But I wasn't really in that bag myself, personally. Right. Now the band, the rock band I mentioned, we had a pretty good guitar player, but he wasn't a Clapton guy or a Hendrix guy exactly.
So you're still on your own. The band is kind of based around the music and the singing and in a band.
And horns too. Like the bands I had from that point on always had horns.
Okay.
We had 3 horns in the Respectables.
And what did the Respectables play in New York or get over that way, or is more around?
No, just pretty much play fraternity parties at Penn State, and and concerts and that sort of thing.
So then,
and then toward the end of that time, I had a band called the Rhythm Kings, and the Rhythm Kings were the band that I was in when our friend Jay Rich discovered me and asked me to sing with Buchanan. So the Rhythm Kings formed at Penn State and then moved to Pittsburgh, and that's how I got to Pittsburgh, because we started to play there and we got popular. Now the Rhythm Kings became something like the early Roomful of Blues, I would say. Very, very similar, playing in that same style of jump blues. And by now I had become a blues enthusiast, really interested in the especially the older styles of blues, like Roy Brown and Wynonie Harris and Bull Moose Jackson and that kind of really cool jump blues stuff.
Roy Gaines,
yeah, I love Roy Gaines.
So that's where, so you mentioned the name Jay Rich, so that's where Jay Rich sees you, is in this band, the Rhythm Kings.
Yeah, we became the hottest thing. In Pittsburgh, there was a street called Walnut Street, and there was a club there called the Fox Cafe. And the Rhythm Kings, they kind of booked the Rhythm Kings for an extended period, playing there every single night of the week for 3 or 4 months, and people would come in there, and it was a scene, man. I'm telling you, it was really great.
And what year is that?
That's 71.
Okay.
71.
So really, I mean, and you did good in school?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated. I could have gone to graduate school, but
I mean, you went to school, you went to college, you got a degree. What'd you get your degree in?
got my degree in religious studies.
All right. Wow.
Yeah. I was gonna, I was interested in Eastern religions and Buddhism and stuff like that. So,
Right.
and I was gonna go to graduate school. In fact, I was accepted at graduate school there, and then after about a month or so, I said, you know what, I like music too much. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. So you're. I mean, this is a pretty successful run so far. Your parents aren't necessarily holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Got a band in school. You're getting out of school. You're going to college. You got a band in college. Are you, if you don't mind me asking me, are you wild in any way? Are you drinking? Are you partying? Are you just
extremely wild? Yes.
okay?
Out of control.
Okay. I mean, it's the time, and we're talking about not
Yeah,
just
I mean, we moved the whole band up from State College up to Pittsburgh, and we rented a house together. And we were in this area outside of the city. We had this mammoth house. This had like 6 bedrooms or something, and we all had bedrooms. Dogs and girlfriends and cats and everything else. Communal living at its worst. And we would play at the Fox Cafe in Shadyside, and after 2:00, anybody who was still standing, we would say, "Come on out to our place. We're having a big party." We had a big record player in the living room, and we all had all our albums kind of organized in those album bins like they used to have in record stores, and we would just play music and drink and commit all sorts of other sins for the rest of the night until daybreak. Yeah.
And then do it all over again.
Yeah. And it was fun. If I was able to continue to do that, Mike, I would still be doing it.
Yeah. But that was probably good times. Really fun.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Living with the band in the house, playing every night.
Yeah, it was good times. I mean, it was a lot of ups and downs, of course. You know how it is.
Yeah. So Jay Rich is, for anybody that doesn't know, he is a producer and was the manager at the time.
He was Buchanan's manager. Yeah, he was originally from Pittsburgh. So do you remember the films by George Romero, like Dawn of the Dead and those zombie films?
Yeah.
So they were made in Pittsburgh, and Jay was friends with a lot of the people who worked with Romero, and they became huge fans of the Rhythm Kings. That whole crowd in Pittsburgh, and so Jay lived in D.C. That was where he first heard Buchanan. But when he would come home for holidays and stuff, he would go out with his friends and come hear me. And he at the time took over Buchanan's career. Buchanan had 2 albums on Polydor Records, and he was due for a third, and they were going to let Jay Rich produce the 3rd album. And he was looking to recruit somebody to sing, and he recruited a whole new band. In fact, the bass player in the band was John Harrison, who you met on that Buchanan tribute, and John worked with George Romero. John's a filmmaker now, and so John became the bass player, and I was the singer that he recruited.
Had you heard of Roy Buchanan before?
I guess I must have seen the TBS special, or the PBS special.
Right.
About
but certainly not a part of your. I mean, not far from your world, but not a soul.
I wouldn't say I was a fan or anything. I didn't know about him that much.
Right. So up to this point, you've got these great bands with horns and singing and kind of really doing this thing. And now this guy shows up and says, he's managing this guitar player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's famous for one thing, and it's for guitar.
Yeah, that's right.
And for loud, lots of guitar playing.
Fast fingers, yeah.
Lots of guitar playing. And you don't know him, but he's on a record label. So maybe that sounds enticing to you, like.
Yeah. So here's my fantasy. I was all about my band, the Rhythm Kings. And so I thought, well, here's an opportunity for me to go with this major label guy. I'll get with him. I'll become famous in my own right, and then I'll be able to write my own ticket for a deal with a major label for the Rhythm Kings, which is really what I wanted to do. And, you know, and musically, it was a shock to me when I started to work with Buchanan, because I was all about, well, I mentioned Roomful of Blues before. I haven't mentioned James Brown yet, but James Brown to me was like the model for all R&B performances, you know. And he was all about tightness and precision and being well rehearsed. And the Rhythm Kings had some of that. The Rhythm Kings had like strong arrangements and were kind of stunning and tight and professional, you know. And now I get with Buchanan, and he is the exact opposite. I mean, everything is a jam with him, you know. I mean, we
have no idea how long the song's going to get.
Yeah, that's right. Everything was loose because he was used to being the side man. He didn't really know how to lead a band himself. And the songwriting process, you know, we were going to do this album for Polydor, and we would be in his. He was very shy, very withdrawn. We'd be in his living room, and he'd start playing, ding, 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 and he'd just look at me and wait for me to sing something. And you know, there was no song there or anything. I just make up some words, and then I'd go home at night and write something, and come in the next day, and it'd be a little more like a song. But it was a very haphazard process, you know.
But also, would you say, like, extremely creative?
It could be. I was intimidated by it. It was tough. Like the first time I ever performed with him anywhere, there was this TV show called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert. It was on ABC or one of the networks, and I had never even rehearsed with him. And he just said, "Well, we'll do I Hear You Knocking, and we'll do you know, these standard rock and roll songs." And I went in front of the cameras. That was like the first time I ever performed with him, in front of the cameras on Don Kirshner's Rock Concert with no rehearsal. I mean, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
So of course, everything I did was crap, and they didn't use any of it. They used like 2 songs where he was singing, and so that was.
So he basically, you get thrown into this from this one world where you're very comfortable into another thing that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I questioned it. You know, I would think, well, have I made a horrible mistake here? What am I doing? You know.
And I don't want to skip around. I want to keep going what we're doing, but I gotta ask: do you think you did now?
No, not at all, because you know, still to this day, who's Billy Price? Well, Billy Price got to start with Roy Buchanan, so I mean, that means something. It still means something.
And don't you think that you learned something that's so invaluable for the rest of your career, that you could just get on stage with just about anybody and find a way to make some magic?
Yeah, I think that's very true. But you know, one of the things you mentioned livestock before. So one of the real interesting things to me in retrospect is the album that we were writing was this album called "That's What I'm Here For," and we put the material together in this kind of haphazard way. And Jay Rich produced it. We did it at the record plant in New York, big budget, major label. And to us, that was the big deal. The record came out, and it didn't do all that well, you know. And I got a really bad review in Rolling Stone. I mean, I got this bad review in Rolling Stone that was so bad, it made me want to quit music forever. I mean, it was really painful.
Do you want to share it?
Huh?
Do you want to share a?
Oh yeah, well, I'll never forget the money quote. The singer, an inept lad named Billy Price, mauls everything he touches, which unfortunately is almost every song on the album.
Oh my God! Who wrote this?
Yeah, a guy named Jim Miller wrote that.
You ever meet him?
No, but I wrote 5 or 6 letters to him all of which I threw away. What are you going to do, man? It was what it was. But so we put all our stock into that one album, and then and then I went back with the Rhythm Kings, and I worked with them for a while, and then they ended up doing another album with all different people. They replaced all of us with some other guys, and that album also was a bomb. That was his 4th album. And then they owed Polydor. They made a deal with Atlantic Records for Roy to move from Polydor to Atlantic, but they owed Polydor 1 album, and they thought, well, we'll do a live album, and we'll bring Billy back to sing, and we'll do a concert at Town Hall. We'll do a live album.
At
That was livestock.
At Town Hall in New York.
Yeah, that was livestock. And now, years later, no one remembers That's What I'm Here For. But livestock, Roy Buchanan fans consider that Buchanan's best album.
Yeah. So what year is this?
That's 75.
And how old are you?
Maybe 24, 25, something like that.
So Roy liked you, though.
Oh, yeah, Roy. Yeah, definitely.
You guys got along good. He liked you.
Yeah, we got along great.
Yeah. So he says, him and Jay say, let's call Billy back.
Yeah.
We'll do this live record, almost like an easy get out of the record deal.
Yeah, that's all. They didn't take it seriously at all.
Like, here, we'll just do this.
The live band was pretty good. It was Malcolm Lukens and John Harrison, a great drummer from Pittsburgh named Bird Foster.
And did you rehearse?
No.
So you didn't rehearse at all?
It was sort of rehearsals, but yeah.
You just went there and did the show. Yeah,
but I had played enough with him by that time live. I had done some tours with him, so we all knew the material pretty well.
So that record comes out and did it do well when it came out?
I don't know how it did commercially as far as sales were
and
I think probably pretty well.
That's the last thing you did with him.
That's the last thing I did with him. Yeah.
So you go and what was the venue again? Town Hall.
Town Hall. Yeah.
And how many people?
Maybe a couple thousand, I guess.
Like a Beacon Theater.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore, though.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Could be wrong.
And you played Carnegie Hall with Roy Buchanan also?
I did, yeah, and that was the big thing. Like I got the Rhythm Kings to open the show. I think Jay Rich might have promoted it at Carnegie Hall, and we had these people from Atlantic Records who were courting Roy at the time come to the show. There was, and I had so the Rhythm Kings opened, and there was this other singer singing in my place with them. This guy named Reuben Griffin, and Reuben was kind of a wild man. We were coaching Reuben, Reuben, just like stay straight, man. Just do the songs, don't improvise like sometimes you do. He would go off on these crazy tangents, So we get to the first slow blues in the Rhythm King set, and Reuben goes to sing, and he goes, "Here I am at Carnegie Hall, y'all," and I'm like, "Oh God." So it wasn't that great. And then our show was what it was, but I had been pitching to this guy who was the head of A&R at Atlantic Records about making a deal for the Rhythm Kings with me, and I remember I was in an airport the next day, and he had told me to call him the next day, and I said, "Jim, did you make it to the show last night?" Yeah, I did, man. I did. I said, "So what did you think?" "Oh, I'll tell you the truth, man. I wasn't really too knocked out." So that was the end of that.
Do you think that maybe it's mostly if you're doing Rhythm Kings in mid 70s, that music is not the most popular music.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing was it was quite derivative. I mean, it wasn't. It was at best a kind of a faithful rendition of stuff that the original guys had done better, to be honest. Yeah.
And if they're working around Roy Buchanan, I mean, that's that's really out there guitar playing.
Yeah, and I guess you know, this guy didn't find it easy to imagine how combining the singer that he saw with Buchanan with the band that he saw opening the show was going to be anything that Atlantic Records was going to be interested in.
Yeah. So, but your parents got to go to Carnegie Hall?
My parents got to go to Carnegie Hall, yeah.
And they offered him a joint?
That's right.
That's pretty amazing. So at this point then, I mean, yeah, your parents you're a singer and no one's got a problem with it. Like they never were telling you need to quit or.
No, pretty much when I moved out of the house and went to college, you know, they didn't watch too carefully about the way I was living my life. You know, they were probably dimly aware that I was drinking more than I should have and stuff, but they didn't see the full extent of it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you remember from the livestock when you were there? When you did that, because the way you tell the story is the way I try to imagine it is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this record, like, I know every place where your voice is. I know every place where he's going to do these type of licks, that all the different things that he could do. And I also know like what the audience sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're telling me is this was just a gig you did with him.
It was a good gig, but it wasn't. I think we did fine. We played the way we normally did, but there were probably better gigs that we did than that one.
Were you more comfortable then with the way this was?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by then I knew what the gig was, and I knew how to do it. They put the guy who had directed that PBS special was a big fan of Roy's, and before I went on stage, he said, "You know, you don't look great here. Wear this jacket." He put this stupid jacket on me that I wasn't comfortable in, so I was sort of pissed off about that, you know. But and then I think I had a vocal nodule at the time too, and I was concerned about what my voice would sound like. But I sang fine.
Oh, your voice sounds great on there. You know what I always think of is it's the most complete Roy Buchanan record.
Yeah,
there's been several different people that sang with Roy Buchanan over the years. Mm-hmm. Your voice was the only one that ever sounded to me like, oh, that's Roy Buchanan's singer.
Interesting.
You know, like that's his band and that's his singer because it matches his guitar playing in his band. And any other time there was, even Charlie Daniels did some recording, or they did some stuff together, or never really matched up.
Otis Clay sang with him on one of his albums.
Your confidence, I guess, it seemed to match his confidence.
Huh. You know, the other interesting thing is that was a revelation to me. Like when I went to France for the first time, I worked with this. And I still do work with this Roy Buchanan devotee in France named Fred Chapelier, guitar player, great guitar player. And when I went to France and met Fred and met Fred's guitar playing friends, they were huge fans of the other album, of That's What I'm Here For.
Yeah, right.
Which surprised me because I didn't think anybody still cared about
it. It goes to show you, every time you put a record out, you have no idea the reach.
You have no idea, that's right. That's
where
exactly
it goes and what's going to happen. So that leads me to my next question. This would be interesting for me. So here you go into this project, a soul singer that's gotten into the blues, and you're leading a horn band, and now all of a sudden you're in this band with this loud, I almost say obnoxious guitar player in this guitar world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a Roy Buchanan fan, still, I mean, you're a guitar fan. I mean,
right.
There's only one reason that you're listening to Roy Buchanan.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Now, you finish this gig. You don't do any more gigs with him. But for the rest of your career, I want to know what happens next, because suddenly, I would assume, every obnoxious guitar player in the world wants to play with you. They want to be in your band. They want you to sing in their band.
Yeah, and they're thinking, what's going through my head is they think I liked that stuff.
Yeah, right. They think, man, here's this singer, and he likes singing with crazy, loud, fast guitar playing, because who likes that? But apparently this guy does.
Yeah, but man, I mean, I've worked with some other great guitar players.
Of course. But I guess my point is, so where do you go from that? Do you go back to the Rhythm Kings, or are people coming to you trying to get you to be in their guitar?
Not that much, no. I mean, yeah, I went back to the Rhythm Kings, and then that for various reasons didn't work out. A lot of that had to do with the drinking and the drug taking that I mentioned before.
Just you or the band, everybody?
Well, I'm talking about me personally. There were other people who had some issues, but that's their business, not mine. But then I went back to school, and I got I realized my religious studies degree was worthless, so I got a writing degree, another bachelor's in English writing, and I up at Penn State. And then while I was there, I formed a new band that I called Billy Price and the Keystone Rhythm Band. And then that band got real serious pretty quick, and I ended up moving back to Pittsburgh with them. I got myself together, I stopped drinking around that time in the early 1980s. And then that band was on the circuit on the East Coast for the next 10 years or so. And that was a terrific
That's band. The band that I see on all the posters there backstage at the
Birchmere and stuff.
At the Birchmere, right.
Yeah, and so we mentioned guitar players before. We had a number of different guitar players, but there was a guy who we got eventually named Glenn Pavone, who died about 10 years ago. And this guy should be a household name, Mike. He is as good as any of the guys that we talk about.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant guitar player.
And he was a guitar player in the Keystone Rhythm.
Yeah, he's on two of the 4 Keystone Rhythm Band albums.
Okay, so you guys were doing records, and were you doing original material?
Some. I would say more covers than originals, but some originals, yeah.
But I mean, you're doing albums, so.
Yeah, we did 4 albums. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I mean, and that's what you're doing. Then you're kind of sober.
We traveled a lot. We were on the road a real lot.
And how big was that band? Was it horns?
2, sometimes 3 horns.
Okay. Yeah. So always horns. Always making
horns,
sure there's a James Brown aspect.
Yeah. Another guy we had in the band at that time was a guy named Erik Leeds, and Erik was a saxophone player. He was with me for 2 or 3 years. So Eric's brother Alan had been James Brown's road manager for years, and Erik was a James Brown fanatic, and he was kind of the musical director and arranger for the Keystone Rhythm Band at the time. And then he left my band to go play with James Brown, play with James for a little bit, and then his brother started to get involved with Prince. And then his brother became president of Paisley Park Records, and Erik became Prince's saxophone player. So he's the saxophone player on Sign of the Times and on a lot of the Prince.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So Erik was the band leader, musical director of the Keystone Rhythm Band when he was with us.
And so I just saw recently a picture that you shared. It was really cool. Of I guess you're on a magazine in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Looks like it's 80s.
Yeah.
You got a real thin little kind of a Huey Lewis looking tie.
Yep.
The other dude's got the kind of a guitar. It's what year is that?
That would be around 87, 88.
Is that the guitar? Is that Keystone Rhythm?
That was the Keystone Rhythm Band. Pavone was the guitar player back then.
That's the guitar player, yeah.
No. The other guy in that picture is Norman Nardini. He was like another big Pittsburgh artist back then. He was signed to CBS, and he had a band called Norman Nardini and the Tigers. And Norman and I and another guy named Joe Grishecki. Joe was an associate of Bruce Springsteen's, and he had a band called Joe Grishecki and the Iron City House Rockers. So we were kind of the three big rock bands in the Pittsburgh area.
So Pittsburgh was happening, wasn't it?
Yeah, Pittsburgh was cool, definitely.
Yeah.
And I was managed by a guy in Philadelphia named Steve Mountain, who was managing the Hooters. Remember the Hooters?
Sure, yeah.
So we were managed by him, and he was working, trying to get us a deal and stuff, but never quite panned out.
So you were working. This was your gigs. You're out playing, touring, doing the region of the East Coast. But ultimately, the idea was trying to get a deal.
Yeah, that's right.
Trying to see if you get a deal, and so did you get it? Did one of these bands finally? We
put an album out on the Manager's label that was called Free at Last, and it was sort of a deal, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Major label deal, and the album didn't do that much, and it was really good. It had almost all original material, and it was right in that sweet spot, I thought, of Robert Cray and Huey Lewis and the News, and and I was very disappointed with how quickly it died, and that led me to. I ended up going to graduate school. I got a master's degree in writing, and I got a day job that I had.
So you were like, that's it. I'm gonna put this on the back burner. Yeah,
I was, and then, I always find a band. I always form a band. Then I formed what became the Billy Price Band, and that's the band that's what I still call my band in Pittsburgh.
So what year is that you decide you're going to go back to graduate?
89, 90 or so. And the thing was, Pavone was becoming so strong that I thought, Pavone needs to get out there with a bass player and drummer, and he needs to be putting himself out front, because he was that great and that strong. And he could sing fairly well, too.
And so overall, you're disappointed that this band didn't hit, but you were like, well, okay, I'll just go back to school and
yeah, and I had a good day job for 25 years, actually. I worked for a research institute at Carnegie Mellon University, and I got into management there, and it was a pretty serious day job, but
you were still singing.
At the same time, I kept it going. I kept making albums, and I think the best work I've ever done in my life is the work I did when I was also working during the day.
Yeah. Okay. So no regrets about any of this, because this is something I'm always curious. I mean, you like me or any of us, I mean, you're looking for success, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not singing because you want to be successful.
Yeah, that's true. So here's the way I'll say it. There are trade-offs in everything. There's pluses and minuses in everything. So the fact that I had a good job and I was able to work the good job for years, I put two kids through college for free because I was working for Carnegie Mellon University and their tuition was paid for. I don't rely that much on whether I have a gig this coming Friday and Saturday night financially, So that's a good thing. The bad thing is, now I'm mostly retired from that work, although I do a little bit every week. But I'm mostly retired, and I'm, as you know, I'm trying my hardest to make it in the music business, and I'm seeing people who were my contemporaries who didn't get day jobs, who were really out there, and I'm thinking, if I hadn't gone and had that day job, then I could be playing all these great festivals that Zito's playing, that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, that's, like you said, there's a give and take.
Yeah.
For all of that, for sure. And the style of music, the music that you love, I mean, it never goes away, but it has its times when it gets more popular, and then it's not as popular.
That's true.
And obviously, you mentioned that at some point here, there must be a family involved if you're going to graduate school.
Yeah.
You're deciding, well, I need to take care of my kids, my family.
Well, yeah. I think I made that move to go back to graduate school when my son was about 1 or 2 years old.
Right. So, you're doing things for the right reasons
Yeah.
and still loving music. So, just one more question about this.
Hmm.
When when does somebody start to tell you, "Oh my God, man, I heard you on this record, this Roy Buchanan record."
Yeah.
You thought was like, we made this record, whatever, because it didn't happen when it came out.
Right.
When do people start to realize that you're the singer from this record that 20 years later starts to really become famous?
Well, one thing, the big rock station in Pittsburgh, WDVE, started to play "Can I Change My Mind" from the Livestock album after it came out, and that became one of the most requested songs on WDVE still to this day. They still play that recording, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, the success of Livestock really surprised me. And as I say, the penetration of the studio album in places like France, I had no idea, but
Yeah.
people were really familiar with it and really liked it. You know?
Yeah. So that work that you did with Roy Buchanan, I mean, that was monumental, real work. I mean, not
Yep.
that any of the other work that you didn't do, but really the collaboration of you and him, and
Hmm.
these times that you did get to do something, has stood the test of time.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Keystone Rhythm Band albums, those four albums, uh, there are a lot of people who are aware of them. The first one sure sold a lot,
Right.
and still does to this day. Uh, and as you say, it's a niche style of music. It's never going to be make a real lot of noise commercially, but
Right.
I'm
I mean,
very proud of
honestly,
it.
most people don't know who Roy Buchanan is.
Yeah, well,
They
that's true.
don't
Yeah.
know who he is, and they've never heard of that record. But if
Right.
you're into rock and roll and guitar and blues or any of that kind of stuff, I mean, that is a record
Mhm.
it's almost right up there with the Allman Brothers at Fillmore, the Johnny
Yeah.
Winter live, and I mean, it's one of those records,
That's amazing.
that's in there with that time frame where this live thing was happening.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. So
Well, I
you're
should mention in the early days of the Keystone Rhythm Band, I call them the KRB. So in case I lapse into that, that's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
Yeah. So um, our second album was produced by a guy named Denny Bruce, and Denny was the manager of the Fabulous Thunderbirds back then,
Okay.
and also the president of Tacoma Records. But so Denny produced my second album, and like me, he was a big soul music fan. So I was aware of this guy uh, named Otis Clay, who was on High Records, which was Al Green's label.
Mhm.
He did his records down in Memphis with Willie Mitchell, who produced Al Green. And I remember Denny and I used to talk soul music all the time. And he said, "Man, you have to hear this live album I got by Otis Clay. You ever heard of Otis Clay?" I said, "Sure, I've heard of him." So he mails me this double LP, this uh, live album that Otis Clay did in Japan, and I just completely flipped through it. I mean, I loved it so much. I probably covered 7 or 8 songs from that album. I just loved it. It was, to me, it was everything that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And and I got to talking to my manager at the time, and we decided, why don't we contact Otis Clay, and maybe he'll come and play a gig with us, on the East Coast. He lived in Chicago. So we called him, we talked to him, and he was hesitant, and finally I talked him into it, and because he never did this, he never went anywhere without his band. So he comes east, does one show with us here in D.C. at Desperados in Georgetown, and another one in Pittsburgh at Mancini's, and it was just pure magic, Mike. I mean, like,
Yeah.
an unbelievable experience. My first album, the title song is "It Over." That's my first album with the Keystone Rhythm Band. So that's an Otis Clay cover. Is It Over?
Nice.
And so, like, the first time singing that song, sharing the lead vocal with Otis Clay, like right next to me. I was so overcome by emotion, I almost couldn't sing. You know, it was really a profound experience. So after we did that once, man, we did it a ton of times over the years. And then many years later, I had been, this was, what year would that be? Like 2015, many years later. I had been talking to Duke Robillard about producing a solo album for me, and Duke was into it. And then we had plans. I was going to go to New England and record with Duke in the studio where he works. And Otis gets back from the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise. He calls me. He says, "You know, man, a lot of people on the cruise have been saying to me, you should do a full-length album with Billy Price." I said, "Well, that's a great idea. Let's do that." So I called Duke and I said, "What would you think about doing an album of Otis Clay and Billy Price instead of just Billy Price?" And of course, you know, Duke was, yeah, you know, so somehow or other, with all the logistical challenges that we had, we were able to pull it off, and we did.
And when did that record come out?
That was in 2015.
Had you made records between the 90s and 2015?
Oh yeah, tons of them. I mean, we could go into all those.
You continued doing your job, but making Billy Price band records.
Yeah, I did 2 albums with Fred Chapelier, the French guy for Dixie Frog, the French label. We did 1 live album and 1 really great studio album. And I did an album that was produced by Jerry Williams, Swamp Dogg, out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Did an album called The Soul Collection.
So you kept making records, you're working.
Yeah.
But now, 2015? That's not so long ago. So you're maybe your day job is winding down.
Winding down, yeah, that's right.
And you're still, young man. There's time to play music. I mean, you're starting to really get the itch again to maybe do more music.
That's right. That's right.
And maybe also, like we talked about, the style of music that you love, you're starting to see again that hasn't gone away. In fact, there's an audience out there now.
It's kind of persisted, longer than I expected it to.
There's festivals, there's Sirius Radio, there's record labels, there's some things going on.
And there's this whole blues niche community that you're part of and that I'm part of. There's a
does the Otis Clay record do well?
Yeah, it did. It did super well. We put it out on VizTone, and it won the Blues Music Award the following year for Soul Blues Album of the Year. Now Otis passed away 3 months before the BMAs that year. So, and we have Otis and I did 2 dates together, like maybe a month before he passed away, and it's all on YouTube. I mean, we got a really good videographer at the show in Pittsburgh, and man,
you got to figure something like that.
Great stuff.
That is a lifetime achievement right there.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, this is somebody you really looked up to, someone you was a hero. You're doing what you do because of them. You get to befriend them. You get to make this record.
It was the last album of his career, and then I actually sang in the funeral in the church in Chicago. I sang "If I Could Reach Out," which was one of his favorite songs of his whole career.
So
I have never
also be another like. Okay, I got to keep doing this. Like,
of course,
of course. I mean, you got to keep doing this. Not only does it bring you back, you're getting more of this national exposure again, but you helped your hero make a great final record that's really recognized. So is that then when you get with Kid Anderson and start talking about making another record?
Like what happened was one of the records that was in the same category at the BMAs that year was the record that he did with Wee Willie Walker. For Wee Willie Walker, which is also great, And Kid and I had a friend in common. It's a guy who plays saxophone in my current band in Pittsburgh. His name is Erik Spaulding. And Erik had been doing his day job out on the West Coast, and got to know Kid, and he became like a regular session player on a lot of the albums that Kid was producing at Greaseland. So, Erik would always say, man, you should talk to Kid Anderson. He'd be perfect as a producer for you. And then he would say to Kid, man, you should produce Billy Price. He'd be great. So he was kind of doing the matchmaking.
The old runaround.
We met at the BMAs, and then I was going to do another recording for VizTone, and I was talking to another producer, and I kind of had a verbal deal with this other producer, and then I thought, well, just for due diligence, let me call Kid Anderson and talk to him, and he made a really persuasive pitch for me going out there and recording with them.
And he certainly likes the kind of music that you like.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
He's a student of it. Yeah,
he's a student of it. Yeah, he really is.
Absolutely. So you guys hit it off right away. Yeah,
and honestly, of all the things I've done in my career, I'm proudest of the 2 albums I've done out there in Greaseland.
And what's the first record you did with Kid?
The first record is Reckoning.
Yeah.
And the second record is on your label, Dog Eat Dog.
But so Reckoning was also nominated.
Yeah, Reckoning was nominated for Soul Blues album.
And were you nominated that year also,
no.
like separately? But the album was nominated.
The album was nominated, yeah.
And so that's, again, this is, it's been a long time coming, but here you are winning with Otis Clay. Then
I would tell people I'm having a really good late career here.
Well, you made a good point. You made a really good point, and I don't feel like I fall in this category. You've been doing this a long time. You never stopped doing it.
No, I never stopped doing it. That's right.
The music that you're talking about that we love, this is music that, to me, the most famous people in blues and soul and in any of the roots music, they've been doing it the longest. Willie Nelson's the most famous Americana roots country singer because, he's 150 years old and he's been singing forever.
Right.
B.B. King was the king of the blues. He will always be the king of the blues. And he'd been doing it since the late 40s. And so it has this, you got to stay in the game.
Yeah. It's somebody asked Mick Jagger once when he was young, how long can you keep doing this realistically? And he said, look at Howlin' Wolf, look at Muddy Waters, they're still around, and they get better and better with age. So we're fortunate that this is a music where having experience is an asset, not a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you just one more thing. How do you compare Billy Price's singing today, after working with Otis Clay and doing to Billy Price's singing, like when you were a young man? Because you were great singing on those Roy Buchanan.
Probably had a little bit cleaner voice back then, and I could probably get notes a little more powerfully back then. But it's not really about producing notes or power. It's also about, the most important thing as a singer is to be able to embody the song and to make it believable. And I think at that I'm much better than I used to be.
Yeah, you've got you've had a lot of experience.
Yeah,
it's gotten better with your age and experience, for sure.
The other thing about the last 2 albums is I started to write for my albums maybe 4 or 5 albums ago in earnest, And I've gotten to a place now where I have collaborators I work with, and I'm very proud of the songs that we've written over the last 2 albums.
So that's a newer thing too.
That's a newer thing.
Yeah, you're really becoming a deeper artist. Is not just the singer you wanted to be when you started.
Yeah, because I always thought there's no point really in doing this unless I can make a contribution to the genre and not just be. Because so I cover a song like "Nickel and a Nail" by O.V. Wright. Yeah, it's nice. It's a decent cover, but if I'm going to listen to one person doing Nickel and a Nail, I want to hear O.V. Wright do it.
Of course, and you're doing it because you like the song. I mean,
yeah.
Of course.
But,
So why not?
I can look at Reckoning and I can look at Dog Eat Dog, and I could say, okay, we have, Toxicity, we have Lose My Number, we have the song Reckoning.
So let's talk about Dog Eat Dog. So then, Reckoning does well, and that's kind of you mentioned our label, Gulf Coast Records. So that's where we kind of come into play of doing Dog Eat Dog, which is nominated this year for Soul Blues Album of the Year, and you are nominated for Soul Blues Singer.
Yeah, that's a great honor.
And have you ever been nominated for that before?
No, never.
So this is a huge year, even though the BMAs are not happening next month, but they're going to happen.
Yeah.
And I got a very good feeling, and I don't want to. And I know who I voted for.
Well,
I think a lot of people voted for the.
That Tad Robinson album is great, and I love Tad. That is a
There's
really
lots of great stuff out there.
Yeah.
Just get nominated.
Bobby Rush. How can you argue with Bobby Rush?
Well, of course. So Dog Eat Dog, though, that's a big record.
Yeah, I love the album, and I just Kid Anderson assembles the greatest people to work with out there.
Tell me who you got on this record. You've got Jerry Jamot playing some bass.
We have Jerry Jamot playing bass. Jerry Jamot is just a giant. I mean, if people don't recognize the name, look him up. He's the bass player on The Thrill Is Gone by B.B. King. He was the bass player of Memphis Soul Stew by King Curtis.
Yeah.
Aretha Frank, the Aretha Now album, Aretha live at the Fillmore, King Curtis live at the Fillmore, Dwayne Allman, on and on and on. Jerry Jamot is, Jerry doesn't just come and punch his card and leave. I mean, Jerry helps to create the whole sound of those recordings. He's 100% present and creative at all times. He surprises you with the stuff he adds.
That's great.
Jim Pugh on keyboard,
from the Robert Cray Band fame,
Yeah, from Robert Cray Band, Etta James, and Jim is a great guy and a brilliant musician.
Also, there was a vocal group.
Yeah, the Sons of the Soul Revivers. So I haven't mentioned gospel music, but I'm a huge fan of gospel music. It may be my favorite style of music of anything. I think I like it, better than blues and maybe better than soul. I love gospel quartets, and to work with a real gospel quartet, those guys.
Does that bring you back to those doo-wop days of
yeah, very much so, and they sound amazing on the songs that they sing. Yeah. And then there's Kid's wife, Lisa Anderson, Lisa Lushner Anderson. She's
amazing. And Kid's not a bad guitar player either. Don't tell him I said so, though.
He's not too bad at all. He can play anything too. He can play keyboards and bass.
Pretty good.
Yeah. He's
It's too bad he's Norwegian.
That's right.
Let's hope he watches this.
Yeah, he is amazing. I have so much respect for him.
Oh yeah.
I love him. He's a great friend.
I do too. He is the embodiment to me of a student of the music.
Yeah, he really is.
It inspires me.
Have you watched any of his 2-hour extravaganzas on Facebook where he's playing stuff from the studio?
Oh yeah.
They're great.
It's great.
His stories are great, and also, I mean, it turns me on to some music that he's done there that I wasn't aware of. He's done some amazing stuff there.
He's prolific.
Just great.
Well,
and Erik Spaulding is on it, and he just produced an album for Spaulding.
Yeah, they're always busy there.
Yeah,
he doesn't have kids. That's what I always say. I have kids. I always go, okay, you don't have any kids. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Well, this has been, what a great story, Billy. You've been one of my favorite singers for years because I'm a singer as well. Certainly not a singer on your level, but I've always been a singer and a guitar player. And to find that Roy Buchanan record, it was always a record that, and I've told you this personally before, because there were records I got into because specifically of guitar that he played a Telecaster.
Yeah, yeah.
Very specific, weird thing. But at the same time, there were blues songs on there, and there was this singer that to me always was holding his own with Roy Buchanan on the guitar.
Huh.
So that's my go-to record, and I always equate, that's what Roy Buchanan sounds like. It sounds like your voice and his guitar. Same way that when I think of the Allman Brothers, I think it sounds like Dwayne and Dickie and Greg live at Fillmore, because that's just what I've heard over and over and over and over, you know. So, it was a big inspiration to me, you know, that you could have all of this guitar, but you could also sing well. Because a lot of noodly guitar players, there's either no singing or the singing is not very good.
Yeah, I agree with
back seats.
I agree with you. The elevation of the guitar, beyond the voice, to me is a sort of a strange form of blues, because I think of blues, at least this may be my bias, but I think of blues primarily as a vocal music and as stories.
And a story. Right.
And to deliver a story, you need a singer who knows how to deliver a story.
Yeah, even the best guitar players, the most famous, do sing.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan's most famous songs are 2 minutes and 30-second pop songs that were on the radio.
Right. Albert King was a great singer.
Right.
T-Bone Walker was a great singer.
I always attribute, someone, if you ask a housewife, hey, how do you like Jeff Beck? And they will go, who? Jeff who? I don't know who that is. What about Eric Clapton? Oh, I love Eric Clapton. He's the best guitar player. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess technically maybe Jeff Beck's a better guitar player, but nobody's ever heard of him. He doesn't sing. Yeah,
that's true.
So housewives, normal people, regular folks. Mm-hmm. That record always told me that you could have this level of guitar playing. Mm-hmm. And it made the guitar playing rise above, because there was another, it's like the Rolling Stones. You have the guitar and the voice. Mm-hmm. And it just stuck out to me. So becoming friends with you, getting to know you, getting to play music with you on stage. I've had moments where I get to play with you and I just kind of stop playing because I'm listening to you sing, and I think that's the record. Listen. We listened to every day for a decade. Was on in my music store I worked at.
That's amazing. We're really lucky to do what we do. It's so gratifying to hear somebody say that.
It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and become friends with you. And these new records you're doing are tops, man. They're really not just because we get to have a record label. I'm very proud that we got to put out Doggy Dog, and I look forward to whatever's going to come next.
Yeah, I have a Dropbox folder full of tracks from my writing partners, and so Britton, my keyboard player in Pittsburgh, very prolific, great writer. I just have to get busy and write the next set of hits. But
you're a young man. You're in great shape, and you're kicking ass. So I think it's and it's at the right time. Where maybe it's just been enough of the loud guitar and the harmonica, and how about some singing again, man? And some songs in the blues. Yeah, and I think it's great. I think it's really
thanks. You said before we started this, you said we'll try to keep it to an hour, and I was thinking, an hour? How the hell are we going to cover an hour? Man, we're into an hour and a half now. So
well, it always goes this way. Billy Price, you're held up at home. Are you doing anything online that somebody may want to check out? Maybe you're going to try to do something.
I don't play guitar or anything, so I can't. Sure. The only thing I can do, Kid sent me karaoke versions of all the songs on the 2 albums.
How do you feel about that?
I could play that and sing live to them. I haven't really felt like it so much because I'm still sort of in shock about everything that's going on in the world and how everything's changing. But one of these days, I think I'll get out from under the rock and maybe do something.
Yeah, well, they can, and you have a website, Billy Price.
BillyPrice.com, yep.
BillyPrice.com. Mm-hmm. And, of course, GulfCoastRecords.net. And if you haven't checked out Billy's newest records, especially we like Dog Eat Dog, but we love Reckoning as well.
Yeah.
Check them out, please. And man, it's great talking to you. I know of you and about you, and we're friends, but I don't know everything. This was really.
This was great. I think you have another career coming here, Mike. Yeah. You're pretty great as a host.
Well, I would, if they would pay me to do this, I'd probably just do this.
Fantastic. That's great.
It's great, Billy.
Great fun. Okay, thanks, man.
Well, what'd you think of that, huh? Billy Price, who knew? I had no idea that this man was so educated, that he has such degrees. It's incredible. That's certainly something I was not aware of, considering also this amazing music career that he's had. So I love Billy to death. What a great guy, and what a great singer and performer, and very proud to call him my friend. And I still listen to Livestock pretty regular, I got to tell you. It's a staple for me. Right up there with the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore and B.B. King live at the Regal. It's just one of my favorite live records. So Billy is great. If you do not have a copy of Dog Eat Dog or Reckoning, I highly suggest you get these records. And there's nothing to do but listen to music, so you might as well get them. Go to gulfcoastrecords.net, go to billyprice.com, and check it out. Please, Billy is just something else. And I'm sure the Blues Music Awards, we're going to find out at some point they'll allow us to have the awards show, and Billy certainly got my vote. So there you go. Thursday night, we have a big episode coming up. As I promised, the entire Proven Ones band, all 5 members on one screen. It's chaotic amazement. I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy it. So I'll see you Thursday at 6. Please wash your hands. Don't be an asshole and stay inside. Peace.